A little while ago, I did a video on running shoes that didn't work for me. In that video, I did say I was going to follow up with a few more videos on shoes that I was enjoying and other shoes that I was looking forward to trying. I'm going to change things up a bit. I'm still going to do a follow up, but I'm going to wrap it all up into a single upload. So let's get into it. I guess in some ways you can look at this video as being my top 10 running shoes of 2021. I've already done a video on the shoes that were no bueno for me, so there's no stinkers in this list. Keep in mind though, what I am doing is ranking each of these shoes against the other shoes that are available to me in my rotation. So just because I put a shoe at number 10, it doesn't mean that it's a horrible shoe. It just means that it's not as good as other shoes that I've got in my rotation. All of these shoes I've put in between 50 and 100Ks, most of them being in and around that 100K mark, so I've got a pretty good understanding of how they perform. What I haven't included though are those shoes that I've only just started running in and other shoes that I haven't unboxed because obviously I can't give my thoughts on those. I am looking forward to giving you my thoughts on these new shoes that I am trying out. They are the Adidas Boston 10, the Solar Boost 3, the Hoka Rincon 3, the Carbon X2, which is a little bit old but still a current model, and the Bondi X. There's also the on-running Cloud Stratus, which is a shoe that I am super pumped to try out because I've never run in one before. Alright, now with that out of the way, let's get into my top 10. I'm going to be ranking these in order from my least favorite, I guess, to most favorite, starting with number 10, and it's the Nike Pegasus 38. There aren't many running shoes that have got a history like the Pegasus. I mean, it's a shoe that's been around since 1983, but not only has it been around since 1983, it's doing exactly what it did since 1983, and that's being Nike's workhorse daily trainer running shoe. What you can generally expect from the Pegasus is a pretty solid combination of technology and performance. And for me, it's where Nike really set their standard for running shoes in any given year. With the even number releases as part of Nike's range, we typically don't see a major update. That's true for the Pegasus, but in this case, there are some minor changes that have had a huge impact to the shoe. The Pegasus 37 was pretty well known for having a really unforgiving fit. I'm pretty sure Nike stuffed up the last that the shoe was based on, and what it meant was the shoe fit extremely narrow and the heel lockdown was pretty poor. Nike did make it clear that they had fixed these fit issues in the Pegasus 38, allowing for a more comfortable fit, especially around the midfoot, and redesigning the heel area so that you could get a more locked in feel around the back. It was no longer uncomfortable for people like me who have a regular width foot, but still couldn't seem to get a comfortable fit in the regular width Pegasus. Apart from that, all of the other ride characteristics were pretty much the same as the Pegasus 37. And this is probably why I've placed it at 10th on my list. I just think that there are other better daily trainer options available on the market. The Pegasus 37 is a shoe that I think prefers to go faster. I don't think it's a tempo shoe, but that preference of going faster comes at the expense of being comfortable at more cruisy paces, which is kind of at odds with what I want from a daily trainer. I tend to reach for a daily trainer when I'm not sure what I really want to do as far as my run for any given morning, or when I want to do a little bit of everything on the run, you know, a little bit of sprints, cruise a little bit, whatever the case may be. And I just think that the Pegasus doesn't do so well at those cruisy paces, and on the days that I want to reach for a daily daily trainer, I would probably go for something else that I've got in my rotation. What I'd love to see in the next PEGASUS iteration is probably a bit more of a cushioned midsole. It's really responsive at the moment, but it's not super plush. And I think that is in large part why it doesn't do as well on cruisy days or days where I want to run longer and slower. Shoe number 9 is the ASICS Magic Speed, and this is a really fun shoe to run in. It's a shoe that I actually enjoy. I think it's fun to run in because I really don't have any other shoes like it, which is also the biggest negative about the Magic Speed. A little bit like the PEGASUS 38, the Magic Speed suffers from an identity crisis. It was released as part of a trio of running shoes. It was the daily trainer options to 2 ASICS Super shoes, but it's not really a daily trainer. The midsole ride is far too firm for that to happen, and the upper is a little bit too light on to kind of cover a lot of scenarios. It fits more in between a daily trainer and a tempo day shoe. But the problem with shoes that are neither one thing nor the other is that they don't end up doing any of those two things right, and what they actually do right is not really a problem that people need solved. And in this case, it's not actually a type of running shoe that people would need, which is why I found myself reaching for it less than I thought I would. I really enjoyed my initial run, and I've put a little over 60 Ks into it. But I find that if I want to use a daily trainer, I would reach for a daily trainer. If I want to do a tempo day, I would reach for one of the excellent tempo shoes that I've got. And so I really need to be conscious about wanting to pick the Magic Speed. It feels less, I don't know, natural. I think it would be good to see another iteration of the Magic Speed with a little bit more padding up top, especially around the heel, and with a midsole compound that is tweaked a little bit to make it a little bit less firm. Shoe number 8 is a shoe that I actually feel is massively underappreciated. It's a shoe that didn't come out in 2021, but I've run in it mostly in 2021, and it's the New Balance Fuel Cell TC. Most people are pretty familiar with the Fuel Cell RC and RC2. Those are New Balance's super shoes, or their marathon races. The TC is the training counterpart to that shoe, and it has a carbon plate, a full-length carbon plate, which is pretty fashionable these days, but it's different in its application than what we see in other super shoes. Best way I can describe the New Balance Fuel Cell TC is that it's got the upper of a daily trainer, the midsole of a max cushion shoe, but the carbon plate adds a level of responsiveness that brings a little bit more versatility to the table. While it sort of falls in the jack of all trades type of shoe, a shoe that can do a little bit of everything, unlike the Magic Speed, this is one of those shoes that you could genuinely reach for if you weren't sure about what sort of run you would do on any given day. The only negative that I've found with the Fuel Cell TC is that it's not the most comfortable shoe to walk around in. It's fine when you're running, but if you're doing anything that requires a level of stability or feeling planted to the ground, it's probably a shoe I wouldn't reach for. So going to the gym and things like that, I'd give it a miss. Shoe number 8 is the Hoka One One Mach 4. This might surprise a few people that I've placed it so far down the list, because being in 7th place probably doesn't seem like a worthy spot for the Mach 4. It is an excellent shoe. It is one of the best do-everything shoes on the market. But there's a reason why I've put it at 7th place on my rotation. My previous experience with the Mach series was a tempo-based shoe that really couldn't do much else. It was not the most comfortable shoe, but as long as you went fast enough in the shoe, it felt okay. The Mach 4 is a complete departure from anything I knew about the Mach series. It's strayed away from being only a tempo shoe and added a lot of features that have made it a lot more versatile. The upper is really comfortable, the bottom end feels cushioned while also being responsive, and so what happens with the Mach 4, it's turned into a tempo shoe at heart with a few extra bells and whistles to make it more comfortable for those other types of runs that you might do. If you only had to have one shoe in your collection and you really wanted to try and get the most out of every type of running style, the Mach 4 is an excellent pick. But if you've got a few shoes in your rotation and you buy specific shoes for specific run types, like I have, what I think happens with the Mach 4 is it ends up fading away a little bit. Shoe number 6 is the Nike ZOOMX Invincible. If you've been around the channel before, this will be no surprise that I absolutely love this shoe. It is probably my favorite Nike shoe of 2021. I think what you do get out of the ZOOMX that you don't get out of something like a PEGASUS, and I guess what you're paying a premium for, is a foam compound, which is ZOOMX, that works incredibly well in giving a well-cushioned ride that can still pick up the pace to a certain extent. Like, it's not going to be a speed day shoe by any stretch, but because there is this rocker design and the ZOOMX foam itself is such a great compound, you know, it's cushioned and responsive, it actually lets you kind of get on your toes a little bit. What also works really well with the ZOOMX is the fit. There's a super wide platform, makes it really comfortable to walk around in. It's not ideal for any sort of stability type exercises because there is such a thick slab of ZOOMX, which is quite spongy, but it's a generally all-round comfortable shoe that kind of bucks the max cushion trend by being able to pick up the pace a little bit when you need it. Shoe number 5 is the ASICS Gel NOOSA Tri 13. This is a shoe that I did not think I would enjoy as much as I did. When I spoke about the Tri 13 for the first time, I mentioned that my last experience in a NOOSA shoe was horrible and that I had never ever looked at one again. I wasn't even tempted by the fancy colorways and prints that they would come out in year after year, but the 13 was a little bit different. It looked to be a completely different design, and it did look a lot like the Evo Ride, which incidentally is the same shoe. They are virtually the same outside of a few features on the Tri that kind of make it a little bit more Tri-friendly. What I've loved the most about the Tri 13 is the way that they've seemed to have balanced a lightweight Tri-friendly shoe in a package that is comfortable under normal circumstances, well cushioned, but super responsive. And so while it definitely does prefer to go a little bit faster, it is more than capable of handling slower paces. Shoe number 5 is the New Balance Fresh Foam More V3. Just because the More V3 is ahead of the ZOOMX Invincible, it doesn't mean that the More V3 is a better shoe than the ZOOMX Invincible. Keep in mind that I'm ranking these shoes against all of the shoes as part of my rotation. I've put the More V3 ahead of the ZOOMX Invincible is because one thing that the More V3 does better than the ZOOMX is comfort. The More V3 is not an overly responsive shoe. It does okay, but one thing that this shoe aims to do is to provide comfort above all else. When I need cushion and only cushion, I'm not too fussed about really getting up on my toes or doing any sort of sprints as part of the run. All I want is a cruisy day for my feet. That's when I go for the More V3. This thing has padding everywhere, and while it's not super duper responsive, it is just so comfortable to wear. I think that the ZOOMX Invincible is more versatile than the More V3, but as far as what I need from a max cushion running shoe, the Fresh Foam More V3 gives it to me in spades. Shoe number 3 is very much like the Fuel Cell TC, a massively underappreciated shoe. It's a shoe that I don't see a whole lot of fanfare about, but is actually excellent. It's unassuming, it's cheap. It feels great on foot. It's cheap. This retails here in Australia at $150. It is by far the cheapest shoe on my list. What I love about this shoe is its versatility. It's quite lightweight, but still balances all of these daily trainer attributes like a durable outsole and a really versatile feel. It can go fast, it can go slow, and it just feels great on foot. There's not much to complain about. Oh, well, actually, no. One thing is just it's a bit daggy looking, but if you can kind of look past the aesthetics, this is just such a solid option at an excellent price. Shoe number 2 is the Puma Velocity Nitro. I was really tossing up whether or not to give it the third or second spot because I really enjoy the Reebok FLOATRIDE Energy 3, and this shoe is also a daily trainer, but the Velocity Nitro does edge a little bit ahead, only because I found the upper to be a little bit nicer, and I really enjoy the running dynamics of the nitrogen infused midsoles. If you're not used to them, they're not the most cushion shoe, but that doesn't mean that they don't provide you with a level of cushion. They're also super responsive, and once you get used to that sort of running shoe, it really does open up a really pleasant running experience. The only thing I would probably like to see change in a future iteration of the shoe is possibly a more lightweight upper, but as far as daily trainers goes, this is the best in 2021. It's super durable, it's super versatile, it's reasonably priced. There really isn't much not to like about it. And finally, shoe number 1 is the New Balance FuelCell Rebel V2. It's number 1 for a very simple reason. It makes me want to run. And actually, not only does it make me want to run, but it's a shoe that I feel gets the most out of me. Every time I lace up in the Rebel V2, I'm immediately energized. I just love the feel on foot. The fuel cell compound in the Rebel is the best rendition of fuel cell available. It's everything that fuel cell should be. It's soft, it's responsive, it does everything right. The upper is super lightweight, super comfortable, and while you might need to be careful on the conditions that you're using the shoe, because if there is a lot of moisture on any given day, it can sort of seep through the transparent bits of the upper, it just feels featherweight on foot. It feels like it can do anything. It's not the most durable of running shoes. You know, the upper is, like I said, very lightweight. There are transparent parts to it. The outsole has some fairly minimal rubber coverage. But for me, whatever wear I get out of this shoe, I enjoy. I love running in it. And it's a shoe that has to be number 1 for me. I'm really interested to hear what your favorite running shoes are of 2021. Stay tuned for my next videos on some of the running shoes that I've started to run in and haven't unboxed yet. I'll get to those soon. But until the next video, laters.